Hello and welcome to another episode of the Average Joe Football Show. I'm your host, Joe Fair. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Dennis Rodman's favorite football podcast. That's right. I'm joined once again by my illustrious producer, Joe Thiessen. How's it going, Joe?
Dennis Rodman.
He
was my favorite player on the Bulls.
Yeah, really?
He was.
What year?
Probably like, I would say like 87. But
87?
Actually 93. 93, the Bulls 93. Man, they kicked butt.
I could be wrong.
Anyways.
Okay. No, I just don't think. I don't think he would have been on the Bulls in 93.
Yeah. Come see, come saw.
But
man, he was good at ball. I heard that he was like a really good defender.
Yeah.
Like he would sometimes go games where he wouldn't score any points, but he'd get like 20 to 30 rebounds.
Yeah.
And like
when Joe says he heard this, he means I said it literally right before we started recording.
Probably 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, literally. We were in the middle of talking about Dennis Rodman, and I introed the show. So yeah. So, but Dennis Rodman, he was a crazy person.
Yeah, my goodness, what a crazy life to live.
Yeah.
I've watched videos of him telling stories about how he lived his life, and
he lived by his own rules.
Yeah, tell a story about him.
Okay, well, the one time in the middle of the season, they let him go to Vegas. I think they said he just needed 2 weeks or something. It was something like that. I just need 2 weeks. I just need to reset. He's like, I just need to go. And they're like, okay, fine, you go. Which is the weirdest thing in the world. Like that just never happens. That doesn't happen in sports. So they let him go, and then after that 2 weeks or whatever, I don't know if it was 2 weeks for sure, but it was something like that. And after that time was up, he didn't come back. So Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen had to go to Vegas and get him.
Dang.
So they pulled up to his hotel room.
Yeah.
Which he was sharing with Carmen Electra.
Oh, nice.
And then they just walked in on them, and he was like, "Hey, man, we got to go." So they just took Scottie Pippen. And
Scottie Pippen.
Dennis Rodman.
Scottie Pippen, was he any good too?
Yeah, one of the greatest players of all time.
Like Jordan and Pippen.
Yeah, like Jordan and Pippen. Yeah, they were kind of like, the biggest duo of all time. Scottie Pippen, since he's retired, he's become a bitter, bitter old man.
Scottie Pippen?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
He's so bitter. Him and Michael Jordan are not even friends.
Whatever.
Yeah, they don't like each other. And they're one of the greatest duos of all time.
Dude.
Scottie Pippen is you can tell he's very salty that Michael Jordan was the guy.
Was the number one?
Yeah, he's the guy.
Who do you think is the second most iconic duo?
And
not in sports, of all time.
Of all time? So there's Scott. Are you saying that the most iconic is Pippen and Jordan?
Well, maybe.
I would say Pippen and Jordan are up there. Just in general, in life, the most iconic duo of all time. Well, it's me and you.
I was hoping you'd say
Joe
that.
and Joe, right?
Joe squared.
Yeah. We have this pod.
I was thinking like PB&J or Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Okay, so you're Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
PB and Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Nothing better than a PB&J with Mountain Dew.
I thought you were talking people.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can do people.
Okay. Who do you think is the most famous duo? I am blanking hard.
Wow.
Thelma and Louise.
Kanye. Gracie and Frankie.
Gracie and Frankie.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Like, there's just some names that just go together.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Michael Jordan's kind of a standalone thing.
Yeah.
But also Jordan Pippen, very, very, like, whenever you hear, like, whenever there's a duo of people, they're always like, oh, the one guy is the Pippen to his Jordan, or whatever, or the Jordan to his Pippen.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I feel like Jordan can also be his own thing. But Simon and Garfunkel.
You're the Garfunkel to my Simon.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult. Which one was, like, the main guy? Sonny and Cher?
Cher?
Yeah.
Like,
but Cher's very big on her own.
Yes, very big. I didn't know
big.
there was a duo there.
Yeah, Sonny and Cher. I think they were married or something. I don't know. We're pretty young to be talking about this. Another duo.
Kim and Kanye.
Kim and Kanye. Kim and Kanye. Kim and Chris Humphries. Kim and Reggie Bush. Kim and
what?
Yeah, just all the people.
Monica Lewinsky and George Bush.
Not George Bush.
Bill Clinton, rather.
Yeah, that's definitely a dynamic duo for different reasons, for sure.
John F. Kennedy and Lee Harvey Oswald. What?
Huh?
Name a more iconic
Too
duo.
soon for that joke?
Too late, I think.
I think way too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even funny anymore.
That's like freaking Abe Lincoln and John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah, Abe Lincoln and a bullet again.
Kim Jong-un and
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman, maybe.
Dude,
yeah.
Dennis Rodman went and visited Kim Jong-un at one point.
I'm sure he did.
I'm
Yep.
serious. Look it
yeah.
up. Dennis
Okay.
Rodman went to North Korea and visited with Kim Jong-un. Because apparently Kim Jong-un's a big Dennis Rodman fan.
Of course he is.
That's hilarious.
He probably dresses up like Dennis Rodman and like plays pretend
Yeah, he probably
as
does.
Dennis Rodman.
Because he's a loser. It's. I feel like a lot of the people, like, we make a lot of jokes about Kim Jong-un, and it's like, oh, he's this fat little, it's funny.
Fat little what?
Because he's like just a goofy looking guy.
Yeah.
He's a horrible person. Like,
Yeah.
just unreal.
Yeah.
The cruelty that he puts his people through. And there are a lot of rumors that he's dead now. Kim Jong-un.
If he was, we wouldn't find out for another 5 years.
No, we
probably.
would, because they can't die, because he's like a god to everybody.
Yeah.
There.
But
And
who keeps up his legacy then? His family? Like, that's so weird.
Yeah, this is very weird. His dad died, and that was like a national tragedy. And he was also pretty. I don't know. This feels like it's getting into territory that we're not qualified to talk
Yeah,
about.
I know nothing about North Korea
South and North Korea.
either.
Talk
actually.
about duos. South and North Korea.
BTS, biggest quadro of all time.
Biggest
Quattro?
quattro?
No,
Is there 4 of
I
them?
think there's 5 of
I
them.
think there's
actually.
definitely. It feels like more than 4. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Is there one in BTS that's like the main guy? That's like the Harry Styles.
Ooh, Harry Styles was not the main guy
Yes,
in One
he
Direction.
was.
No, Niall was the front man.
No.
Yes, Niall was the front
Who's
man.
the biggest since then? It's Harry Styles.
Yes, that's because he had the best solo career. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything else.
That absolutely means it. So like what you're talking about, like NSYNC. Who's the biggest from NSYNC? Justin
Timberlake.
It's because he had the biggest solo career afterwards. The biggest star will have the biggest solo
No.
career. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 100%.
Niall did have a little bit of a career.
Yeah,
But
no,
he
he
was the
did.
front man. He was the blonde pretty boy.
I don't know about that. I also don't know. I just don't know. I don't. Which one? I didn't know that Niall was a blonde one. I thought he was
Yeah.
talking about a different one.
And then there's Liam Payne, obviously.
And what's the other one's name?
Zayn Malik.
Zayn Malik. And that's it. How many?
And
Is,
then Louis Tomlinson.
you really do know the first and last name, all of them.
Yes, I do.
That's really good.
You could show me a picture of each one of them, and I could tell you just who it
Really?
is. Yeah,
That's incredible.
they've been apart for like 10 years.
I
so.
couldn't. I think that would be a fun thing because you could show me pictures and I would not know.
Really?
Niall, I thought was the brown-haired one. I thought he was. But now that you say Zayn,
Zayn had a pretty
which
good
one's
career.
Zayn?
Zayn is the one that had the song called Pillow Talk.
Oh, Pillow Talk.
Pillow Talk, my enemy, my out. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a baby with Gigi Hadid.
Okay, and she is. Yeah. No, she's a model or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I kind of know that, but
Rihanna's pregnant, don't you know?
with who?
ASAP Rocky's baby.
Oh,
Makes
yeah.
me so
I
excited.
remember you getting so.
I love pop culture, man.
You're
Oh
so-
man, I'm so excited about
so
that.
excited about the other day.
Name a more iconic duo:
Yeah.
ASAP Rocky and Rihanna.
The other day, Joe was getting so excited at lunch at work because ASAP Rocky and Rihanna were gonna have a baby, and I
I'm
was like,
pumped about
"What
that.
are we doing, man?
I'm excited.
What are we doing?"
When Travis Scott and Kylie were having a baby, it was kind of like, 'cause I wasn't a huge Travis Scott stan, but
And
I'm a
that's
huge
that was a good
ASAP
idea.
Rocky stan.
Are you a big
I love him.
ASAP Rocky stan?
Yeah, I actually really like
$8
A$AP.
sign app Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
man.
it's the collective. ASAP is the rap collective.
Anyways, we don't have Mike on the show today. It's just me by myself.
I'll be filling in
talking
for Mike. He sent me his notes, so I
Yep.
got. I'm covering the Dolphins game, the Ravens game, the Giants, and the Packers game tonight.
Okay,
So
the Dolphins and the Giants played in the same game, so you just try to make it sound like you
I'm
had
covering
more
3 games. so.
3 games. Okay, so yeah, Joe will take over. Joe's actually gonna be here, just chilling. I don't know. Maybe we'll have him jump in at some point. Mike's
I'll
not
probably be on my
here.
phone.
I guess Mike was just too scared to record while his Patriots were playing in a pivotal game against the Bills. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know if that's the reason, but we'll get into it next week. But Joe is here. He's bringing it. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about before we get to the
I thought you
football.
said you had something you wanted to
Yeah,
talk
I'm
to
gonna
me
wait
about.
a bit when we
You're
get
gonna wait?
when we get into the football. I'm gonna
Stay
wait.
tuned to see what Joe wants to talk to me about.
Yeah, I want to talk to Joe about something, and it's kind of football related. So stay tuned for that.
Well,
But no, it'll be good. It'll be good. Don't give me that face. It'll be good. Got anything you want to talk about before we jump into the football?
I think I have said all I need to say.
Okay. All right.
You know that Elon Musk and Grimes are separated?
Yeah, no, I did know that. I guess this is just gonna become a pop culture podcast after the.
I could do that pop culture corner,
But it's
baby.
it's just gonna be a pop culture podcast. But it's gonna be like us vaguely knowing about pop culture.
Just seeing like a headline. That's it. Not reading anything, just seeing a headline.
We're like, yeah, Meg the Stallion's pregnant. I think, right? Is she?
With who? Tory Lanez's baby.
Yeah, is it maybe right?
No,
Hey.
he actually shot her in the foot.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I remember hearing something about that. That would actually, I think, be an not interesting at all, but a funny thing to do is just kind of have a pop culture podcast, but you don't know.
Yeah.
We don't really know pop culture. Like, we vaguely just whatever
Yeah.
you see in passing.
I'm not even on social media, so I
Yeah.
don't really know.
Basically, whatever you see at the grocery store on, like, the...
Yeah,
on
which
the
is not even
magazine.
real.
Not
all
at
of it is
all.
fake. so.
Every single thing is fake. But yeah, anyways, this podcast isn't fake. And neither was week 13 in the NFL. So why don't we jump right in to some football? Week 13 officially in the books here in the 2021 NFL season. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the regular season in the NFL season. Still so many unanswered questions, and not a whole lot of questions got answered this week. A lot more chaos. Honestly, a lot of games that were not very good. It was a week full of games that kind of had lopsided victories, lopsided losses. It had one team, a really good team facing a bad team. Not a whole lot of intrigue as far as most games go, but there was definitely still some things to talk about. So we're going to get into, instead of going through game by game, we're going through certain games. Because I'm here by myself today, I'm just going to give you guys 10 observations I had from week 13 of the 2021 NFL season. We're just going to go through 10 things that I observed this week in what was another great week in the NFL season. But before we get into that, I want to bring my good friend Joe back on the podcast, and we're going to do something we haven't done for a good little bit. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's everybody's favorite podcast game show. It is What Does Joe Know? That's right. If you're tuning in for the very first time, or you've never listened to a podcast with What Does Joe Know on it, Joe, why don't you tell the listeners what this show exactly is?
I don't know much. Okay?
All right.
And this is the show that we find out how much do I actually know
How much do I not know
about football.
Yes, exactly. So Joe, he's not here for the football. That's why it's the Average Joe football show. He makes up mostly the Joe and a little bit of the average. He doesn't make up a whole lot of the football.
Yeah.
He's here. He does a lot of the hard work behind the scenes. We really appreciate him for that. He's a comedic relief. A lot of people say that the only good part of the podcast is actually Joe.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, it's too much, honestly.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people, Joe's really funny on the podcast, and they don't really say anything about me, so I'm just assuming that they already know that part. So, but it's like, they have to kind of...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have to kind of...
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, no, right.
Probably.
Right? Yeah.
Probably,
Right?
yeah.
Okay. But, Joe, as good as he is at all those things, he's not great when it comes to knowing things about the game of football, whether it be NFL, CFL, college football.
I did watch CFL the other night, though.
Yeah, you
Last
did.
night, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and how did that? Who was playing?
Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Blue Belts.
Blue Belt.
Blue Rags? Blue what?
Blue Bombers.
Blue Bombers. Yeah,
win it
Bombers.
from
Yep. Winnipeg.
Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And who won that game?
Saskatchewan.
I don't think they
Blue Bombers definitely took the game, and it was good. It was fun to watch. Honestly, I can't wait to see them in the Grey Cup this week.
Yeah, man, Grey Cup. The Blue Bombers versus the
Edmonton.
Not quite. It's actually in Ontario.
Wow, Argonauts, eh?
No, the Argonauts. It's another Ontario
Hamilton
team.
Tiger Cats.
Yeah, Hamilton Tiger Cats. And the game's in Hamilton.
My wife has a Tiger Cats debit card.
Really?
Believe it or not.
Is she a fan?
No, it's a different team. Never mind.
Is it the BC
It's
Lions?
a Tillsonburg baseball team, I think, actually.
So not even close to the same thing.
Anyways, guys, this is the show. Joe knows the most. I know the least.
Yeah, I think that's evident.
And
so, a couple of weeks ago when Joel was on the podcast, we talked, and we were really surprised how much teams you knew. Like, you knew a lot of teams.
Give me a break.
You were really good at knowing the teams. Like, we would say, the New England
Patriots.
Yeah, and you would just know this.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Like, we would go, the Buffalo
Bills.
Yeah, it was crazy. The Miami
Dolphins.
Yeah, it was just uncanny. The Denver
Broncos.
Unreal. Insane. However,
okay.
I'm curious how much of this, although you may have just proved me wrong, is you just knowing the team name and not so much knowing the city where they're from.
Okay.
Okay. So there are 32 NFL teams.
Stop
Joe.
watching TV right now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I can see you just keep looking. You're just distracting you. Hold on.
Don't kick it closed. Don't get your toes off my laptop.
There we go. Just
no, that's inconvenient. But
thank you.
There are 32 teams in the NFL, which means there are how many cities with NFL teams?
32.
Not
31.
Exactly. No.
30 actually.
28.
Wow.
Yeah. New York and Los Angeles each have 2 teams.
Yes.
So 28 cities have NFL teams. I have with me 5 American cities.
Okay.
5 American cities.
All right.
4 of these American cities have a current NFL football team.
A city, not a state.
5 of these cities have a current NFL team. One of these cities does not have a current NFL team.
Okay.
All you have to do, Joe, to win the podcast this week is tell me which of these cities does not currently house a NFL team.
Okay.
How are you feeling before I name you the cities?
Decent, actually. Yeah? I think I got definitely like a 40-60 chance that I'm not going to get this right.
40 that you are?
50-50 then. Then we'll just make it easy.
Okay, just less confusion.
Yeah.
That way. Okay. So you're feeling okay.
Yeah.
I thought you'd be more confident about it.
80% chance I'm going to kill it.
Okay. So let's remember, I'm going to read them off. Slow down, okay? I don't want you to rush into things. I'm rooting for you. I want you to get this. So let's just pace ourselves, really think about it. And then, we'll see where we go from there. So, 5 American cities. So the cities are, I have them on this paper. Nope, not this paper. I have them on this paper right here. The 5 cities are, and again, just pace yourself. The cities are Chicago, St. Louis, Seattle, Houston, and Las Vegas. Which of these 5 American cities does not currently host an NFL team? Is it Chicago, St. Louis, Seattle, Houston, or Las Vegas?
I have my answer.
So I was going to ask, how are you feeling off the top? You're feeling pretty good? Like, how confident are you that you got this? That's right.
Do you have the team names written down there?
No, I do not. But I can tell them to you because I know them. So, yeah.
Chicago Bears.
Yep.
Houston Texans. Seattle Seahawks. Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh.
St. Louis does not have a team.
Unbelievable. Wow.
I know my
stuff. That was killer. That was so cool.
Thank you.
That was really good. I really thought Houston would get you.
No.
I thought Houston would be the one that would trip you up. Wow. That was incredible, Joe. For you to not only name it, Yeah, pat yourself on the back for you to not only name the city,
But all the other teams.
then the teams. That was really cool. I thought Las Vegas might give you a little.
No. They used to be the Los Angeles Raiders, but now they're Las Vegas Raiders.
Okay, we should have quit while we were
What's
ahead.
that?
Yeah, we should have quit while we were ahead.
L.A. Raiders.
No.
What?
No. Oakland.
Oakland, yeah. Oh, shoot. Obviously, the Pirate Eye and the...
No, but actually, technically, you are right because way back in the day, they were the
Oakland.
Los Angeles.
And Oakland's
Raiders.
in Los Angeles anyway.
Oakland is close to
it's in
Los
California.
Angeles.
That's what I meant.
The St. Louis, I'll give you bonus points. Can you name the name of the last team that was in St. Louis? The St. Louis, they're currently in Los Angeles. The St. Louis.
Rams. The Rams.
Rams.
Yeah.
Unreal. What a podcast.
We talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
What a winner I am.
You were a winner.
I won.
That's unreal.
It
I
feels
feel
good
like
to win. I never win. Like at work, at home, I'm a loser. I'm a failure. And now, finally, here I can come and, prove something.
it's about time. We just said how much you didn't know, and you come in here and you're a winner now.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
I'm a winner of myself.
You're a winner of yourself.
Oh, man.
Give me a high five, dude.
Thanks, man.
All right? We're a little too far apart for high fives.
Good.
But let's imagine. That was a high five between. Well, I was doing it. You
Shoot.
you didn't have it. So
All
now
right,
it sounds like
one more time.
now it sounds like we high fived twice. No, I was gonna do
Oh,
it.
sorry.
Yeah, here.
Oh.
I don't think you understand. I was gonna do it,
Oh,
so I will do it like that.
nice.
Yeah, so you can cut the rest out in post.
Okay.
Okay. Joe, that was awesome. I feel like we don't even really need to do anything else on the podcast.
No,
I should really quit while we're ahead.
Yeah.
Quit while you're ahead.
Well, I'm ahead, yeah.
Yeah, but no, that was really good. And what else is going to be really good is the rest of this podcast. That's right. I'm
Thanks.
calling my shot.
That was a stretch.
Yeah, I know. A lot of these transitions, I really stretch it. But we're going to talk about 10 observations I had from week 13 of the NFL season. I'm all by myself. Like I said, I'm all by myself this week. So,
Not all by yourself.
Well, no, you're still here. And I appreciate that about you.
You can, if you want me to chime in, let me know. I'll tell you what I think about certain games and stuff.
Listen, I might call on you at some points. Yeah.
I won't be listening, so I'll have to improvise.
Yeah.
But it's good. I've been working on my improv.
I
do a class on Friday nights.
Are you ever not improvising?
What's that?
Well, you're acting like you like improvising would be you doing something new. Remember how last episode went? It was a lot of improvisation.
No, I flagged that one. It got taken down.
That one's
inappropriate content. Yeah,
bullying.
I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, that's fair.
We got 0 downloads, but I still took it down for cyberbullying because I knew people would make fun of me if they ever heard it.
We had 0 downloads, and still a lot of people bullied him.
Yeah,
it was like you guys listened but didn't download, and then just exclusively bullied Joe. About it. So guys, please stop. I understand he was terrible last week, but guys, we can't. I mean, come on.
I'm a human.
He's a human.
There's a human behind that screen of yours, and it's me.
Those earbuds?
I have a heart.
Yeah, there's a human in that sound. Yeah, a human makes those voices.
There's a man behind that voice.
Exactly. That man has a heart. Okay, I think that's good enough. I think you're good. You can take a break, and we'll jump right into some football. Oh boy, where to start in week 13 of the 2021 NFL season? It's been a crazy season and another crazy week in the NFL, and I think the craziest place we could possibly start was with the Detroit Lions, and that's my number one observation from week 13, and it's that the Detroit Lions are the most lovable losers in NFL history. However, those lovable losers picked themselves up a huge victory this week. In week 13, they defeated the Minnesota Vikings 29-27, and Dan Campbell, Motor City Dan, as Mike calls him, and as a lot of people call him, but most notoriously Mike, obviously, calls him Motor City Dan, picked up their first win of the season. It's about time. And I'm watching this Bills game before we get in, and everybody is dropping the ball. I know it's windy, but everybody's fumbling and dropping, and it's what is going? It's just wind. Why is everybody fumbling and dropping the ball? Anyways, back on to the Detroit Lions. Wow, what an incredible game to win. So basically, the Detroit Lions in this game against the Minnesota Vikings, they get off to a 20-6 lead at the half. So they're up 20-6. And then they end up blowing the lead. So with under 2 minutes left, they are down 27-23 with no timeouts remaining. They march down the field, and with no time remaining on the clock, an 11-yard touchdown to none other than Amon-Ra St. Brown for the game-winning score. Detroit goes nuts. Ford Field goes nuts. Dan Campbell goes nuts. Jared Goff goes nuts. And they pick up their first win of the season, and everybody loved it. And I think this is something that's kind of different, as we always have teams like this. Every few years there's a team that it looks like they might go 0-16. Well, now it would be 0-17 with a 17-game schedule. But there's always a team like this where it looks like, oh, they could go for it. And a lot of the times they're just the butt of the joke. And I think the Detroit Lions are absolutely the butt of the joke. But it seems like a lot of the time they're a team that's full of a lot of unlikable people. Like I can recall the Browns when they were going 0-16, and I felt like Hugh Jackson was not a guy that was respected. He was not a guy that was like loved by people, and people kind of didn't like him, and there was just unlikable characters. But it feels like with the Detroit Lions, everybody's been rooting for them since the beginning of week 1 when they went up against the San Francisco 49ers and gave them one heck of a game, and then they competed with the Baltimore Ravens, and they've competed every single week, essentially aside from a few games where they were blown out, but they've really competed every single week, and they've come so close and lost in such heartbreaking fashion so many times that so many people were rooting for them. And that's something that's, I think, is so different for this Lions team, that's so different from other teams that look like they could go potentially 0-16 or 0-17, as people were rooting for them. And in this game, I mean, it was incredible. It was still a ton of mistakes from Dan Campbell and from this team. And I think Dan Campbell as a coach, as a clock management guy, decision maker, I don't think he's incredible. A couple of weeks ago on Thanksgiving, his team called back-to-back timeouts, which was a penalty. You can't do that, and that did not look good. And I think he's made some questionable decisions, but for the most part, he's such a likable guy, and everybody wanted to see him win. And it was so good to see him and Jared Goff. Jared Goff, who played actually pretty well in this game. He went 25 for 41, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick, including that huge touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had himself a really good game, 10 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. And just a bunch of unlikely heroes on this team that really brought this victory to the forefront for the Lions. Guys like Jamal Williams, who was the backup running back. DeAndre Swift, obviously injured. He was injured on Thanksgiving. Jamal Williams had himself 17 carries for 71 yards. Not a huge day, but a pretty good day. And then guys like Charles Harris, who was a draft bust for the Miami Dolphins like 3 years ago. A guy who was an absolute bust. He's got 6 sacks on the season. He had 2 first-half sacks in this game. Just a real difference maker in this game, which is so bizarre considering he was an absolute bust his first 3-4 years in the NFL. And honestly, I just feel overall so happy for the Detroit Lions, for Dan Campbell, and for Jared Goff. Honestly, he's got the short end. I don't think he's a very good quarterback, to be honest. He's okay. I think he'll make a great backup for many, many years if that's what he wants to do. But it's good to see him. His name has been trashed ever since he was kicked out of Los Angeles, ever since Sean McVay abandoned him, and just trash. And to see him throw that game-winning touchdown and then run over to his head coach, Dan Campbell, and they're celebrating, and everybody's celebrating, and everybody was so happy for the Detroit Lions. So that is why my number one observation is that the Detroit Lions are the most lovable loser in NFL history, because I've never seen a team this bad have so much support. But now, you're the Detroit Lions. You got your first win of the season. You got it out of the way. That's great. I'm so happy for you. You did it against a division rival. Now, I would just coast. Let's lose the rest of the games. Let's go draft. Let's go draft Aiden Hutchinson with the first overall pick, the hometown kid, the kid from Michigan, and let's start the rebuild. We got our win out of the way, and let's move on. But on to my number 2 observation, and it's the team that was not victorious in this game, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. And to me, my number 2 observation from Week 13 is that the Minnesota Vikings are the mascot of the 2021 NFL season. And every week, I come on here and I say, oh, it was a crazy week and it was a crazy season and it's been a crazy season and it's every game is crazy. And it's because it is crazy, man. Every week is crazy. And I think the craziest of them all, the representative of the 2021 NFL season, the mascot of the 2021 NFL season, was the team that gave the Detroit Lions their first win of the NFL season, and it is the Minnesota Vikings. This is a team that's chock full of talent. This is a team that if you just go by talent, especially offensively, this is a team that should be a Super Bowl contender. And this is something that I've been saying for years, really, and something I've been saying for years on this podcast. I know this is only year 2, but ever since I started this podcast, I've been saying the Minnesota Vikings should be a successful team. The Minnesota Vikings, with Justin Jefferson, one of the best receivers in the NFL, second in the NFL in receiving yards. He's had games this season where he's had 118 yards receiving, 124 yards receiving, 143 yards receiving, 169 yards receiving, and then this past game, 188 yards receiving. You have that guy on your team. You have Dalvin Cook, who, when healthy, is one of the best running backs in the NFL. Oh, yeah, and then you have Adam Thielen, who's probably a top 10, 15 receiver in the NFL, just a consistent guy, a guy who produces week in and week out, and he did get injured in this game. But all that talent, and you still cannot find any consistency on this team. This is a team that this season has beat the Los Angeles Chargers, has beat the Green Bay Packers, has played really, really close with Cincinnati, with Arizona, with Baltimore. I mean, these are one-score games. They have the most one-score games in the NFL this season. They are constantly in every game, but this is also the same team that has lost to Cleveland. You know, Cleveland has showed they're not a great team this year. They've lost to Dallas without Dak Prescott. With Cooper Rush starting at quarterback, they've lost to the Dallas Cowboys. They've lost to San Francisco, who I guess you could say San Francisco, they're a good team at times, but they've also lost to the Detroit Lions, who were 0-10-1 before that first win. So they've lost to teams like that, and then they've played really well, and it's just the lack of consistency to me is such a perfect encapsulation of what the 2021 NFL season has been, and that's pure chaos at all times. That's Kirk Cousins lining up behind his guard last week instead of his center, and that's the Vikings. And I think this loss really cemented a lot of people's fate in Minnesota. I think Mike Zimmer, there's a really, really good chance he's not there next year. I do think Mike Zimmer is a good head coach, but I think there comes a certain time where you just got to move on, and I think it would be good for both parties, and I think that Mike Zimmer will be gone after this season, and I think the biggest question is, will Kirk Cousins be gone? Is Kirk Cousins going to be there? They are still tied to him with a lot of money. I've been saying since the beginning of this podcast, before the 2020 NFL draft, I was saying the Vikings need to get themselves a young quarterback. The Vikings need to do something else at quarterback. I understand Kirk Cousins' numbers are good. Every single year they're good. But he just is not taking this team over the top. And you got to wonder, is this the final year of Kirk Cousins, of Mike Zimmer? But only time will tell. And so far, time has told this season that the Vikings are so inconsistent. Some weeks, they look like one of the best teams in the NFL. Some weeks, they look like the literal worst team in the NFL. And I think that's a perfect mascot for what has been the 2021 NFL season. But moving on to teams that took care of business in Week 13 instead of being the Vikings and losing to a team that you should have beaten, the Rams and the Indianapolis Colts, for my third observation, they're two teams that took care of business in Week 3. And to me, this is the separator from the good teams and the really good teams, the contending teams. And that's teams that take care of business when business needs to be taken care of. And that's against teams that they should beat, teams that shouldn't have a chance against them, teams that are not on their level, Go out and just beat those teams. Don't make it close. Don't have an unconvincing win. Go out and just handle business. And that's what the Rams and the Colts did this week. And the Colts, they bounced back from a tough loss to a really good Tampa Bay Buccaneers team last week. They bounced back from that with a 31-0 victory over the terrible Houston Texans. I know it's just the Houston Texans, but it's a divisional game. The Texans have given some teams trouble this year, but to go out and handle your business, to me that shows that the Colts, they're not a team that's going to stick, they're not going to let these teams stick around. They did the same thing with the Jets a few weeks back. It just, when you go up against teams that you're clearly better than, go and handle business. That's what good teams do, and that's what the Colts did. Jonathan Taylor had himself another huge game this week, 32 carries, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and a really, really good bounce-back game for the Indianapolis Colts. And then you go over to the Rams side of things. They're on a 3-game skid. They're on a 3-game losing streak going into this week, and how do they bounce back? Well, they picked themselves up a 33-7 victory over the hopeless Jacksonville Jaguars. And again, it's a bad team, but you handled business. You didn't let them hang around. You dominated them. You took them to the woodshed. You said, we're going to handle this, and we're moving on. And they were a team that, this was one of those games where everything was clicking. The Rams, I mean, there's no way you're a Rams fan and you don't go away from this game feeling good. Darrell Henderson didn't play in this game, their starting running back, but Sony Michel had 121 yards on 24 carries and a touchdown. Matthew Stafford threw for 3 touchdowns, and then Cooper Kupp had 129 yards on 8 receptions and another touchdown. So just all across the board, really, really good game for the Los Angeles Rams. And good teams beat bad teams. That's what you do. You don't be like the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings are a good team. And that's, even some weeks they're not even a good team. But the Minnesota Vikings are not a contender because they don't do things like this. They don't take teams that they should beat, like the Detroit Lions, and beat them. And so to me, that is my biggest key for my third takeaway, is that good teams take care of business, and that's exactly what the Rams and the Indianapolis Colts did in Week 13. Then on to some business that hasn't been handled and won't be handled for some weeks, and that's this year's MVP race. And that brings me to my fourth takeaway from Week 13, and this is the most confusing MVP race in recent memory. I don't know who's going to win MVP. It's so bizarre because it seems like every year around this time, around Week 13, Week 12, and sometimes even earlier, quite a bit earlier, you can kind of tell who the MVP is going to be. Last year, you could tell it was Aaron Rodgers. The year before that, you could tell it was Lamar Jackson. You can just kind of tell. And the year before that, Patrick Mahomes. You just know. There's not a whole lot of suspense. And that's what's different about this year. This year, we might actually get to the end of the season and have some legit suspense. We might not know who the MVP is because it seems like nobody is really ready to take that step up. And I think if I had to guess right now, honestly, Tom Brady would probably be the MVP. I guess. I mean, Jonathan Taylor certainly should be considered. And then you have a guy like TJ Watt, a guy who had an unbelievable game this week, and we'll talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers in a bit, but a guy who had an unbelievable game this week, and a guy who has just been so dominant. He's leading the league in sacks with 16 sacks. Should he be considered for MVP? And a defender won't win MVP. It just won't happen. I wish it would, but it's not going to happen. I wish it would. And if there would be a year that it would happen, potentially this would be the year. And it's weird because it seems like in college football it's very much the same. It's the year that nobody really knows who the Heisman is, and it seems like it probably is Bryce Young at this point, but who knows? And literally anybody. It's anybody's game, and that's how I feel about the MVP. It's a really confusing MVP race, and it's probably Tom Brady, but it could also be Jonathan Taylor, and, could consider TJ Watt. Kyler Murray seemed to basically have it locked up, but then he got injured for 3 weeks, and then Derrick Henry was a guy who we were considering. He's injured. He's out for most of the rest of the season, so he can no longer be considered. So to me, it's fascinating that we might make it to the end of the NFL season and not totally know who the MVP of the NFL is. And speaking of not totally knowing, on to my fifth takeaway from Week 13 of the NFL season, and that's the AFC is a complete and utter mess. And I just, the AFC is a mess. This is what Roger Goodell, this is what the NFL dreams of, because the AFC is, nobody's separating themselves. In the AFC, there are no 10-win teams through 13 weeks, which doesn't seem that crazy. It's hard to win 10 games in 13 weeks. The Cardinals are the only team in the NFL with 10 wins, and they obviously reside in the NFC. However, in the AFC, 13 of the 16 teams in the AFC have either 6, 7, or 8 wins. 13 of the teams. That means essentially 13 of the 16 teams have a legitimate shot to make the playoffs. They're not eliminated. The difference between the number 1 seed, and this is pending the Monday Night Football game that's happening as we record this, between the Patriots and the Bills. So I'll give you that caveat. If the Patriots win, they'll be this will not be ring totally true. But right now, as of right now, the difference between the number 1 seed, the New England Patriots, and the number 7 seed Cincinnati Bengals is 1 game. 1 game of separation from the number 1 seed in the AFC and the final wild card spot. And that is just absurd. Nobody's taking that next step. Nobody's taking that step up. Nobody's separating themselves. Teams like the Ravens, they lost this week to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Teams like the Buffalo Bills, they have not been able to step up the last few weeks. Teams like that, teams that we would have expected to take control. The Chiefs, they struggled at points this season. Those teams have not been able to step up. And there are so many teams that are still alive. And there are 6 teams that are not currently in the playoff picture, not currently in the top 7 seeds, that are still very, very much alive in this playoff race. And listen, chaos is fun, and this AFC has been fun, but that doesn't mean it's not messy. And the AFC is a complete mess this season. But speaking of a team, I got to stop with these transitions. That's a lot of transitions in one podcast. But on to my next point. My 6th observation, we're going to go to one of those AFC teams that has a real chance to make the AFC playoffs, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And my 6th observation is the Steelers will not go down quietly. This is a team that I've written off for weeks. This is a team that everybody's kind of writing off. They're a team that, Big Ben's washed up. This team's not good enough. This offense is bad. And, those things can be true, but also what can be true is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that's not going to go away. They're never, ever a team that's going to just go away. They're never a team that's going to roll over and die. They're never a team that's just going to lay down and just let you, beat them. And that was very much evident this week as they beat the Baltimore Ravens, the former number 1 seed. They were the number 1 seed going into this week of the NFL season, the number 1 seed in the AFC. They drop a game to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Baltimore Ravens go for a 2-point conversion at the end of the game to try to win it. I love that play call by John Harbaugh to take the gutsy play call, and then it was a good play call, but just couldn't convert. Mark Andrews couldn't quite handle the ball there in the end zone. But the Pittsburgh Steelers pick up a huge victory to keep themselves alive. They are now 6-5-1. They're only 1 game out of a playoff spot at this point. And listen, Mike Tomlin, he doesn't have losing seasons. Mike Tomlin's not a guy who's just going to fade away. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in his tenure in Pittsburgh, and he doesn't intend to start now. And Ben Roethlisberger, listen, as much as I talk crap on him, as much as I drag him, as much as everybody drags him, he's a veteran quarterback. He knows how to win, and this team is full of really, really talented players. T.J. Watt, Cameron Hayward, guys like Najee Harris. He's been really good as a rookie. Guys like even Pat Freiermuth, another rookie stepping up. Deontay Johnson, a really, really good number 1 receiver. And then, like, defensively, they're so talented. Minkah Fitzpatrick had himself an interception in this last game. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL. This is a team so full of talent. And if you think this team is just going to fade away into the darkness and we're just going to have to forget about them, that's not going to happen. They're not going to let you forget about them. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that's not going to go away, no matter how much some of us may want them to go away. And then on to my 7th point, and it's another AFC point. A very AFC-heavy podcast this week, but it's just, there's so many questions in the AFC that need answering, and I don't have a lot of the answers, but I also don't think we have an answer for my 7th observation, and that's that Herbert versus Burrow is very much a real debate. And I know you're thinking, Joe, this is a weird thing to say after Justin Herbert picked up a victory over Joe Burrow. This is a it was a convincing victory for the Los Angeles Chargers. And you got something to say, Joe?
No.
Okay. Sure?
Were you not talking to me?
No.
Yeah, I know. I was just...
What? That's it? That's all okay.
No, you said you were talking to the audience and saying, I know what you're thinking, Joe. This and this and this and this.
Oh, okay.
But I thought you were talking to me, so go ahead. Just
okay. Sorry. Yeah, no. My name is also Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, my name's Joe. So I know what you're thinking, Joe. Me, Joe. What are you doing talking about this being a debate when Justin Herbert, picked up a 41-22 convincing victory against the Cincinnati Bengals? Justin Herbert, finished 317 yards, 26 for 35, 3 touchdowns, an interception. Joe Burrow, 24 for 40, 300 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Obviously, Justin Herbert's the better quarterback. Talent-wise, it's not even a question who the better quarterback is. However, I'm going to push back on that. And this is not me going out and hating Justin Herbert. Don't say, oh, this Tua fanboy, this guy who's just mad that the Dolphins didn't take Justin Herbert instead of Tua. I would have loved if the Dolphins would have done that, and I'll admit that right now. Justin Herbert is obviously a better quarterback than Tua is at this very moment. However, I do think that Joe Burrow is I don't think it's a wash. I don't think that Justin Herbert is just a better quarterback than Joe Burrow at this point. I think it's a legitimate debate, and this is something that I would have even disagreed with, at the beginning of the NFL season. But to me, Joe Burrow has impressed me so much this season. And you look at the stats on the season, Herbert's got 66% completion percentage. Joe Burrow's got 68. Justin Herbert's got 3,500 passing yards. Joe Burrow's got 3,100 passing yards. Joe Burrow's got 23 touchdowns. Justin Herbert's got 27. Joe Burrow has 14 interceptions. Justin Herbert's got 11 interceptions. Both have a 7-5 record. So if you count quarterback wins, they both have the same record there. And looking at the stats, it looks like Justin Herbert's played better. To me, Joe Burrow has some things that you can't quantify, and that's this killer instinct. He reminds me so much of Tom Brady. And this is not me comparing Joe Burrow to Tom Brady. I got to always have that caveat in there. I'm not saying Joe Burrow's the next Tom Brady. Joe Burrow's going to beat Tom Brady. That's how it's going to be. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying his mentality to me reminds me so much of Tom Brady, and that's that killer instinct. And it's something that I don't know if Justin Herbert has. I don't think, and this is, again, I'm not trying to criticize Justin Herbert too much. I think Justin Herbert's incredible. He's going to be a star in this league, but I don't know if he has that cockiness that a guy like Joe Burrow has. I love Joe Burrow's cockiness, but like in a good way. I think cockiness can a lot of the times be taken as a bad way, obviously. But I think that confidence, that I'm the best guy in the field that Joe Burrow possesses. I mean, that's something that you just can't quantify. And Joe Burrow, he's really accurate. He's a guy who's he's much more in the pocket. He doesn't have nearly the arm talent that a guy like Justin Herbert has. He's not the athlete Justin Herbert had, but he just has some things that it's just like he just knows how to win. He's just a winner. He wins. He won the national championship at in college at LSU. And I know he didn't beat Justin Herbert in this game. He had a mangled pinky in this game. So shout out to him for pushing through that. And he's another guy who just pushes through injuries. He's just a tough guy, hard-nosed, just really an incredible drive. And that's, to me, that is the thing that sets Joe Burrow apart. And that's why I think that it's very much a debate. I'm not gonna say that Justin Herbert is just better than Joe Burrow. I think it's very much an open-ended question, and it's something that we haven't answered at this point. And I think that was one of my biggest observations from this week, is despite the convincing win for the Los Angeles Chargers, there are still very good arguments to say that Joe Burrow can be as good, if not better, than Justin Herbert, because it's not all talent-wise. If we want to talk talent, Brett Favre, one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Tom Brady's a better quarterback than Brett Favre. And Tom Brady's not even near as talented as a guy like Brett Favre. It's not all talent. It's not all talent with Joe Burrow, and it's not all talent with the Joe Burrow-Justin Herbert debate. And now on to the third quarterback, or I guess he was the second quarterback taken in the 2020 NFL draft. You had 4 quarterbacks going in there. We're not going to talk about Jordan Love in this podcast, but we are going to talk a little bit about Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. And my 8th point is that the 2020 Miami Dolphins are back in 2021. This team reminds me so much of the team from 2020 that nearly made the playoffs, that really burst onto the scene, that many people thought were moving in the right direction. They're back to that this year. This is a team that is run by the defense, that wins because of their defense and because your offense is good enough. And I don't think this offense can get much better than they are right now, mainly because they have the worst offensive line I've ever seen in the history of football. It is unbelievable how bad this offensive line is. So that's why when people say, oh, Tua doesn't throw the ball down the field, he's too scared to throw the ball down the field, he can't throw the ball down the field. He physically cannot throw the ball down the field. He doesn't have the time. Go and watch a Dolphins game. I promise you will find out very, very soon why Tua does not throw the ball down the field very often. It's because he physically can. He can't. He just doesn't have the time for it. I shouldn't say physically. I think he has the arm to do it. He is physically capable of throwing the ball down the field. He just doesn't have the time for it. However, this Dolphins team, it's not about Tua. It's not about the offense. It's about the defense. And this is a team that their 2020 draft was so terrible. And I was one of the most critical guys on it. I was out here blasting Chris Greer and blasting Brian Flores just a few weeks ago, telling them, how big of a disaster this whole regime has been. This 2021 NFL draft class, though, for the Dolphins has been incredible. You have Jalen Waddle, who's been amazing this year. He's tied for second in the NFL, not among rookies, just overall in the NFL. He's tied for second in receptions. He's the heart and soul of this offense. And then you move over to the defensive side of the ball. Javon, Holland, and Jalen Phillips are 2 legitimate defensive player of the year candidates. Defensive rookie of the year candidates, rather. And if it wasn't for Micah Parsons being Micah Parsons, I think it would be literally between these two for defensive rookie of the year. These two have been amazing. Jalen Phillips had another 2 sacks in this game. He's up to 8.5 sacks on his rookie campaign, which is just as many sacks as Chase Young had last year in his rookie season. And then Javon Holland's just a game wrecker. He's all over the field. And this team, this Dolphins team, this defense is playing lights out. And I know the opponents haven't been great. They've played the Jets. They've played the Giants with Mike Glennon. They've played, the Houston Texans, the Carolina Panthers. They haven't played world beaters. But, every week in the NFL, you're playing a professional team. And through this 5-game win streak that the Dolphins are on, their defense has allowed 9 points, 10 points, 17 points, 10 points, and 9 points. They haven't allowed more than 17 points through this 5 weeks, and twice they've allowed under double-digit points. And to me, that has been the biggest difference maker. You're taking the pressure off Tua, and he's playing better. Tua's honestly playing better. And he was actually the highest graded quarterback by PFF this week, which was crazy to me. To me, through this 5 weeks, I thought this was one of Tua's worst games. Through the last 5 weeks, it was still a good game, and I thought he made some throws, but he was throwing high a lot. He was missing a lot of throws. I don't know how PFF does their grading, but I would have said this was definitely not one of the better Tua games through the last 5 weeks, but he's improving. He's playing better, and I know he gets a lot of hate because he just doesn't throw the ball down the field, but his accuracy is on point. He's a guy that continues to get better. This Dolphins team is moving in the right direction, it seems like. Who knows? Next 3 weeks, they may lose and get blown out every week, and we'll just have to go through this endless cycle as Dolphins fans. But to me, the biggest observation is that this team is very similar to the team that we saw last year, and it's a team that's run by defense. Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Phillips are an incredible pass rush duo. And then you have Javon Holland and Brandon Jones, who's been injured the last few weeks, but he's been really good. And then Byron Jones, and then Xavier Howard, who had another interception this past week. He's one of the best corners in the NFL. So good at making, game-changing interceptions. This is a team that's run by defense, and the offense just has to be good enough. And will it be good enough to make the playoffs? I would tend to doubt it, just because the AFC is so competitive this year and so just a huge clustered mess. I mean, I think it's going to be very hard. They'll essentially have to win 9 in a row to make the playoffs, in my opinion. But it's working right now, and the defense is playing well, and they're won 5 in a row. And then on to my final 2 points, and starting with number 9, my 9th observation from Week 13 of the 2021 NFL season. And this might be a little bit of a bold, hot take, but to me, my 9th observation is that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the AFC. And I know what you're thinking, Joe, how can you make statements like this? How is this an observation? And maybe this isn't an observation. Maybe this is just a take from Week 13. But to me, I'm convinced. I think, and I talked about it last week, and I've talked about it many times off the podcast with Joel, who's been on the podcast a few times. We've talked about it, at length the last few weeks. And the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, are a team they're quietly, somehow the Chiefs are doing something quietly, but they're quietly moving in the right direction. They're a team that, is on a 5-game win streak. They got off to a tough start. Everybody was thinking, the Chiefs are dead. They've won 5 in a row. Their defense is playing lights out. They're a team, the last 5 weeks, they've allowed 17 points, then 17 points again, then 14 points, and then the last 2 weeks, 9 points. 9 the last 2 weeks in a row. Their defense is playing really well. Chris Jones is a game wrecker. Frank Clark is stepping up. Tyrann Mathieu making plays. This is what you need. You need if their defense can improve, and their offense is not all the way back yet. And I will say that, and I know that their offense is not back yet. They're not totally ready. They're not where they were during their Super Bowl run, but they're getting there. And if you can get there at the same time as your defense is starting to click, your defense is starting to get on the right track, this team is going to be so dangerous when it comes to playoff time. And they still have a really legitimate shot to get the number 1 seed in the AFC. And, this is a team that if they get that number 1 seed and they get hot and they're kind of, forming into shape at the right time, they're going to be tough to stop because they're a team that knows how to win. They're a team that's been there before, and in an AFC where no team steps up, no team has taken advantage of the Chiefs falling, when it comes to playoff time, the teams that know how to win, the teams that have been there before, they're the teams that find a way to win in these big spots. So that to me is why I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the AFC. Their offensively, they're not there. They're using Tyreek Hill, and I find this so interesting. They're using Tyreek Hill as basically bait at this point. He is constantly in motion. And I know they've been doing this for years, but I notice it so much more now. Tyreek Hill's in motion like before every snap, it seems like at times. where he's moving. The entire defense is like, oh, we got to follow Tyreek Hill. And then you run his inside zone, run play to the other side, and it frees that up because all the attention's on Tyreek Hill. You're using him as bait. And then as teams start to be like, okay, they're just using this guy as bait, we don't maybe need to bring the same attention to him. That's when it'll start to free up Tyreek Hill. It'll start to free up Travis Kelce. And this offense will get clicking. I'm convinced this offense will get clicking. And when they do, look out if you're in the AFC, because this team's going to be coming. They're going back to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Right now, I think the Chiefs are forming into shape, and they are a force to be reckoned with. Their defense is playing well, and I know they were not that impressive this week. They 22-9 victory over the Denver Broncos, I believe it was. So not overly impressive, but to me, I've been so impressed with their defense and the direction that they're moving in. And finally, moving on, we'll go to the NFC for one final point. I know it's been a very AFC-centric podcast, but we'll move on to the NFC. And my final point is that Gardner Minshew is the most interesting man in the world. Gardner Minshew, he gets the start for the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 13 because Jalen Hurts is hurt. They'd have their bye week, so they figured they'll give him a rest. Gardner Minshew comes in. What does Gardner Minshew do? He starts the game off 11 for 11 against the New York Jets, finishes 20 for 25, 80% completion percentage, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 33-18 shellacking of the New York Jets. And Gardner Minshew, he's a guy, listen, this guy's the best backup quarterback in the NFL. That's not even a debate. This guy is the guy you want on your team to be your backup quarterback because he's legit a good quarterback. He comes in and he plays good football every week. He's not a guy that's going to go out and embarrass himself ever. He doesn't go out and embarrass himself. He plays really solid football. He may not make the unbelievable plays, but he just plays consistent football. He plays good football. And off the field, I mean, this guy is the most interesting man in the world. I have a shirt with his face on it because I love Gardner Minshew, one of my favorite players in the NFL. And, he had the mullet. He cut it now, but the way he looks with his uniform, he's just one of the coolest looking dudes in the NFL. He wears the cutoff jean shorts. And if you have not yet seen the video of him and his father reacting to the victory that Gardner Minshew pulled off against the Jets this past week, make sure you go watch it because it is one of the most bizarre videos you'll ever see, because at the beginning of the video, Gardner Minshew looks legitimately upset, and I was worried. I was like, is this guy mad? He's doing like a stank face, and it's like, what is going on? He's upset, and then he gives his dad a smile, and they're just like wrestling each other back and forth, and it's just like such a confusing, weird video, but it's really fun. And Gardner Minshew's confusing and weird and really fun, and the Eagles are confusing and weird and really fun at times, and they're a team that's still very much alive in the NFC playoff picture. And listen, this podcast is still very much alive in the NFL landscape. Well, I want to thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Average Joe Football Show. We really do appreciate it. Even when Mike's not here, I'll do my best to step up and just talk your ears off. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed it. I thought Joe brought the heat. I didn't give him a pre-show grade, so make sure you guys give us a 5-star rating. Give Joe a grade. Let him know how he did on the intro of this show. Make sure you guys give us a 5-star rating. Give us a 5-star review. Hit that subscribe button. It really does help the podcast out a lot. No picks on this week's episode. There will be picks on our Instagram, so make sure you guys tune into our Instagram to see who Mike and I pick this week for the Week 14 games. I figure since Mike's not here, I'll just not do the picks. We'll just have them on the Instagram, so make sure you guys go in there, see how we're doing this week with the picks. But we won't have them this week on the episode. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are enjoying the NFL season and this podcast as a whole. It's been a crazy fun time. A lot of really fun stuff ahead. The playoff chase is just heating up. But until Week 14, where there's a lot of big games coming up, until Week 14, for Joe, myself, for JT, behind the mic, making all the magic happen, And for Mike, who's not on this episode but is a huge part of this podcast, we will catch you guys on the next one.